Hello, viewers. I'm Nadia with another episode of Unrushed, and I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Julia Hammett-Jamart, who is an Australian filmmaker, scholar, and an impact producer. And she is now based in France. Let's hear her story from her and welcome her. Hello, Julia. How are you doing?
I'm really well. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so pleased that you accepted the invite. I know you were traveling, you had a lot of work this week. Julia, you are one of the pioneers of the French impact production sector. Not many of my viewers would know what an impact producer is. Could you please tell us a little background?
Yes, it's true that impact producing's relatively new in Europe, but less so perhaps in the States than in Australia and Canada, where it's been established for a longer time. So when a filmmaker makes a film, and particularly documentary filmmakers, they're often driven by some kind of a burning issue, a desire to change something or to draw something to the attention of the society they live in. And this is evidenced in the fact that it can take 3 to 5 years to make a film, sometimes more, sometimes 8 to 10. And so it's not a lucrative activity. It's that something else that's driving them. They want their film to do more than just be seen at festivals and have people applaud. They want to see it bring about change in the real world. And then on the other hand, audiences, when they go to see a documentary film that has a strong message, may be astonished or scandalized or sad or perhaps inspired at the end of it. And then there's that moment of then what? Like, what do I do if I've seen something that makes me feel that there's a real injustice? What can I do about that? So impact producing is actually about that what next? It's the response to those questions. It's about harnessing the power of filmmaking to bring about change in the real world. And what we do is build the bridge between the screen and the real world.
Okay, great. I think discussing impact of a film or a documentary and impact producing is bridging the gap between the people who are making the film, who are in the film, the story is about, and the audience, because you're very right to say that what next is the important and people usually forget. They have passion to make a film or series or documentary, and then once it ends and nobody is worried or thinking about what next. So I think you are doing a very important work. So I understand from your explanation that there is not a single defined career path to impact producing. What path did you take?
Just before I answer that, I'd say that it's not that filmmakers forget, it's that they come to the end of their journey and they have no resources left and no energy left. And so that's
Yeah.
why we accompany them. In terms of my path, so I know this because I myself produced and directed films, both documentary and drama. I went through Australia's National Film School. I produced and directed documentaries at SBS TV in Australia. But also, I worked within the government funding apparatus. I was manager of governance and strategic planning at the Australian Film Commission and at Screen Australia. I have a PhD in social sciences, media and communication, and have written about film policy. You know, maybe, I don't know if you share links, but you can share some of the links if you like, or people can just Google and find links to my work. So all of that meant that actually it seems like a hodgepodge of different skills, but it's precisely that combination of skills that means that I'm, I think, particularly effective as an impact producer. People come to it from different combinations. So there are those who have been activists or who have worked within non-governmental organizations or within government. They don't necessarily come from the film industry. I think it's been an advantage to me to understand the mechanics of production and distribution, because it means I can have a real dialogue with the teams I'm working with, and I understand exactly what their imperatives are. You know, the things that they can do and the things that they can't do as well.
Yes. Julia, I have gone through some of your papers that you have researched and published, and I will definitely post the links at the end of the interview because they will be very informative for the people who want to come into this business. And yes, I will definitely do this. And thank you for sharing your work with us. Can you tell us more what sorts of projects that you are working on now or that you're very proud of?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, I'm traveling quite a lot at the moment because I'm in the middle of a release of a documentary called Inside Gaza.
Yeah.
This is produced by the documentary making arm of Agence France Presse, which is called Fact Story Docs.
Okay.
It's based on the testimony of their journalists of their Gaza bureau. So Agence France Presse has bureaux all around the world, Jerusalem, Gaza, Singapore, Australia, but all around the world. And after October 7th, the Gaza bureau was stuck in
Yes.
Gaza at the same time as the rest of the world's press were locked outside. And so the film, and indeed the Impact campaign, although it's obviously set within the conflict, it's focused squarely on what happens when a free press is no longer free. What does this mean for our democracy? So we're really looking at issues that are I think that will federate people rather than divide them. We're not focused on the conflict. We're focused on what happens when journalists' safety is threatened, when access is threatened, and so the international institutions that govern global democracy no longer have the facts to work with. What does that mean for us as a society? What do we think about it? Other projects, it's really diverse, include I worked on a feature film by Aisha Maki, Nigerian filmmaker, about the rise of extremism in her hometown of Zinda. That was called Zinda in Niger. Working on a project called Gut Instinct, which is completely different. It's a virtual reality piece, an immersive piece that looks at the industrialization of the food processes in a really fun way, and it takes people to an awareness of how the ways in which we eat are affecting our health, our physical health, and our mental health. So there's a real diversity of projects you can see, and others in the pipeline.
Yes, I can see that. And Julia, when we discuss journalism, media, films, it's really important that the truth is shared with the world at large. And everyone, like in Gaza, the people were inside, journalists, they were locked, and the world was locked outside to go there. And I hope that everyone who has put in their efforts, the world gets to see the real story behind it. And they are also able to take steps for more freedom for journalists and filmmakers through your work and through everybody who has put in their efforts. Yes, and I do see that there's a very diverse range of work and projects that you are doing. And how do you switch from one subject to another? And how do you for that are effective in areas which are not your own specialty?
This is a really good question, a really important question, because obviously I may have a PhD, but it's not a PhD in press freedom. It's not a PhD in gut health, nor in extremism. So the skills I bring are those of being able to work with partners who do have those expertise. It means that I'm able to research and find those organizations. And that's one of the first things I do. I think it was Nick Parsons, a British impact producer, who said at a Cannes Film Festival panel that the role where impact producers are most effective, and I completely align with him on this, is where they're able to identify the experts in the field and partner with them. I'll give you a concrete example. On this documentary Inside Gaza, one of the first things we did was partner with Reporters Without Borders. They have been working in this area for 40 years. And so hand in hand with them, the film becomes a tool for them in their work. But likewise, we're able to talk about what would be campaigns that they could initiate and run with that would extend some of the messages that are being carried by the film. The protagonists in the film are calling out for certain things, for credibility, for solidarity, and for security. What are some of the campaigns that they could run that could extend that work? And then once again, I'm a bridge between the production and that partner. Yeah.
If we talk about the solidarity, especially for Gaza, do you think that the media related people are open-minded, or do you feel there is some certain biasness in media, especially for this kind of movies or documentaries coming from Gaza and coming from Ukraine, coming from Kashmir, coming from other areas where there is a conflict of war going on, right? How do you see it in your opinion?
It's interesting that you ask me, like in a sense, part of my work as impact producer is to try to distance myself from my own opinion. I mean, I am going to share with you my own opinion, but part of my role is to step back from that and to try to, with the team, identify objectives that we all adhere to and then to work to those. I guess that's another skill that I draw from my past as manager of governance and strategic planning at the Film Commission. My role was not to give my opinions to government and to the ministers. It was to work out what the role of the agency was and to further those. That being said, I think it's no secret. Here's a few things that are no secret. One is, whatever one does when you're behind is mediated. One can't avoid that. If I pick up a camera and I point it at you, from the moment I choose the angle of that camera, I am taking a position. Am I shooting from a low angle and showing you high up? Am I shooting from a high angle and showing you low down? Am I choosing not to show what's behind you? So that's a fact. Also, I think it's been well documented that there has been a difference in the treatment of certain narratives over others. There have been reports that go in and empirically document that. That being said, I think it's important for me to point out that agencies like Agence France Presse have been criticized as part of the mainstream media. And yet this documentary is produced by their documentary filmmaking. They are the ones who have given a voice to the journalists, the Palestinian journalists of the Gaza Bureau. They have equally given a voice to the journalists of the Jerusalem Bureau. And I think where there's a perception of bias, it undermines people's credibility, the media's credibility. And so they work hard to try to balance. Yeah. And I've seen that. They do work hard to try to balance that.
Thank you, Julia. This is, I think, the most honest opinion that I have heard in the recent times during my conversations. And yes, I do agree with you that there are people who are in mainstream media. They have one opinion, but they are also trying to balance out their resources by supporting the ones trapped in these countries, which are unfortunately going through wars. I understand that. And I totally agree with you. And you have also done a few projects in Africa for the filmmaking. Could you tell us more about that? And how is the general vibe for filmmaking in Africa? Considering we always think that they have very, very less resources, especially economy-wise.
Okay, so that's really interesting. I think you're probably referring to my work with the NGO Tattoo in Togo. Yes, where I've led workshops for female filmmakers. It's a residency for female filmmakers in Togo that happens annually. And I was invited to talk about impact producing, but also to lead some filmmaking workshops working with the mobile phone. So speaking of resources, that's one of the very first sort of responses to that, because I was asked to come in and lead a workshop, but there were not financial sponsors on board. And I thought, well, that's the reality on the ground for these women. So let's work with that. Let's work out, what do we do when there is not fiscal sponsorship? And everybody had a phone. And these days, making films with phones is entirely possible. So we went through those techniques. And actually, I was bowled over. It was quite humbling for me. There were other things that took place. For instance, there were no cinemas in the place where this workshop was being held. And yet there were films that had been made about the local community where we were in, a place called Palimé. Well, there's something called the cinéma numérique ambulant. It's a mobile cinema. It's basically a little 4-wheel drive that goes around, and it's got a projector in it, and it's got a rollout screen. And the team go into the middle of a village on a dusty road, set up the screen, set up the projector. People come from the houses all around, and they bring their own chairs from inside the house and sit and watch the films there. And so there was a kind of a level of resourcefulness. And what struck me was that it's not so different from what we try to do when we do impact screenings in Europe. In Europe, we're trying to say, okay, we want to take a film, for instance, that has a message. Some people are not going to go to the cinema and see it, so we need to take it to them. So we may go to a hall or an association or a club and do screenings there. And actually, that's not so different from what I was witnessing in Togo. And I was bowled over by the energy and resourcefulness of the women I was working with. They really find ways to make films and tell their stories because they know their stories are important. Yeah, it was very inspiring for me.
This is inspiring, emotional as well, because, like I'm from Pakistan and we have a lot of restrictions. Of course, I do not have resources, but I have a lot of ideas to make short movies on important issues that are actually the issues of the general public. But unfortunately, when I take them to the channels, they're not interested. And even when they're interested, they want to cast the actors who are already overworked, very famous, and not interested. Like people who belong to elite class can never know the problems of a woman who has to work at home, do all the chores, work, raise their kids. So I think this is why I am holding myself from doing this. So, coming back to it is a personal question also. And what advice would you give to ambitious women like me who lack resources, but they want to make a difference through films and they want to touch people's heart and they know the stories that they have? They are going to simply get into people's heart and they do not have resources. They lack resources. What do they do?
Okay, well, I think the démarche, I'm going to say in French, the démarche, the process is not unlike the one that I use for impact producing, which is to say, okay, once you've defined your objectives about a particular film, or in your case, about a particular story you want to tell, who are the actors in civil society whose objectives match those? And they may not be the traditional actors. They may not be, when I'm saying actors, I'm talking about agencies or institutions. So for instance, you're going knocking on the doors of television stations or film funders. But if instead you go, okay, what I'm interested in is, it may be, I don't know, it might be the plight of women in slums. I don't know. If it were that, which NGOs are working in that area? Could they be my partners instead? A place that I've found a really useful place to be is there's a festival called the Festival and Forum on Human Rights in Geneva,
Okay.
FIFDH. It's called. During this festival, so each year they screen films about human rights. So already it's inspiring, and they bring along directors and writers and thought leaders to speak to those films. But during that festival, they have a 3-day event called Geneva Impact Days. During that time, you find filmmakers, change makers being, NGOs, government organizations, people that you want to meet, talking about case studies, film ideas. So this is a place that I would recommend going and checking out. They also run webinars online. And so if one is remote from Geneva or can't afford to be there, it's possible to at least join part of that community. Another community that's worth looking into is the Global Impact Producers Alliance, of which I'm a member. And they also likewise run webinars, many for free. And you can join from around the globe. Like yesterday was the annual the assembly of that, and it was free. And we had, there was a panel and breakout rooms where people could connect. I met a filmmaker that I didn't know, with whom I think might have a good connection, and we're going to follow up. So that's
Great.
Global Impact Producers Alliance, GIPA.
Right. Of course, we'll mention those also, and we will mention if there are very ambitious filmmakers who have done their recording, and they can also join you so that you can bridge the gap between them and connect them with the right people. Of course, we'll encourage everyone to join. Okay, Julia, you have done PhD. Like it takes ages to complete the PhD and to reach the doctoral and the research, the efforts and everything. And then you came into this impact producing, which is like another very difficult, very modern and not very common field. So how do you manage both first, and how do you manage the stress? I'm sure you have your family, you did your PhD, you are a leader. How do you manage the stress, and how do you keep yourself, I don't know if happy is the right word.
Yeah.
And do you sometimes miss that you do not have time for yourself, the little things
Okay.
that player doing when you were very young?
This is a really good question, a really good one for your listeners, who I think, because this is about women's empowerment, this podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. mainly.
So, yes, you're right. My PhD took me a very long time. And at the time, 10 years, I'll be completely transparent. The first 3 years were on a scholarship. And then after that, I was doing it part-time while I was also working full-time as manager of governance and strategic planning and had 2 small children. So it was like I even moved country during my PhD. It was like crazy. And I was very hard on myself at the time because people would say, how long have you been enrolled? You know, now I would say if I was meeting anybody who was doing it, just give yourself that time because as a woman, we carry so many responsibilities. Now, I could have gone, right, I've had it with this family. I need to stick to my PhD and it's all about me. And I could have given up the family and had a divorce. And, that's not what I wanted to do. If necessary, I would have given up the PhD. But fortunately, I also had a family who really believed in me. I don't have it right here, but it's over on my shelf. I have these gorgeous little ceramic things that my children made for me. No, I'll get it. I have to show you.
Sure.
When my daughter was 10.
Oh, this is beautiful.
I was still enrolled. Can you see it?
I can see it.
You know what it is?
I don't know, but I think
it's a woman wearing a graduation cap for a PhD. And she made this for me before I graduated. It was like her embodiment of who I was going to be. And she would leave me little post-it notes saying, you've got this, Mum. You've got this.
That's very good.
Actually, I came to a point where I could not let her down. I had to get that, Yeah, so that's really special.
I'm sure force whenever you wanted to choose between career, study and family, it was pushing. No, my daughter has already imagined me in my degree, getting my degree and flipping that cap. So I think this really kept you going. This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. And when I come to France, I would really love to meet your family.
With pleasure. Now I have to say to you though, I am actually, both my children have they finished school and they moved to the UK. Both my son and my daughter, they grew up in Australia, then they moved to France to finish their schooling, and then they moved to the UK. So they both live in the UK, which means, in answer to the second part of your question, I have a greater degree of freedom to be able to travel as necessary and to manage my work hours. And if I need to burn the midnight oil, it's much easier now. They're both adults. And I think that's something as well that I would say about women, that there is a point, I don't feel that we go down a slippery slope. I feel that there's a point at which, once you've done if you have children, once they're flying, you also get a second wind.
You also get it. I'm sure you're enjoying this because you have worked really, really hard. And I'm sure they're now, because they have grown up, they have their own life, they are better support now for you emotionally and physically also. Yeah, and they were when they were very young. So mashallah. Mashallah is the word that we use in Pakistan for something very heavenly.
Mashallah.
So, Julia, coming back to the sector of filmmaking, they are facing some global challenges also. And what are the top 2 to 3 global challenges that you see they are same in Australia, France, UK? Because you've been to a lot of festivals like Cannes and all these important festivals. And do you see what do you see are the 3 most common challenges that are everywhere?
Okay, so about for the film industry or for impact producers?
For both. So you can, for each.
Okay, so, for the film industry, there's this, a large number of films being made, a huge number. And at the same time, there is less and less people going to the cinema. So this is sort of a quandary. I think impact producing fits into that space because it's really important to make sure that films reach the audience for whom they were intended. As I was saying before, that it's not just a matter about putting it in the cinema and hoping people come, but we're making this for this particular group of people and making sure they get to see it. So there needs to be an action of taking it to them with special screenings. Another challenge, obviously, for the film industry is the increasing digitization of the sector and, the emergence of immersive media. And this is one that I'm sort of actively involved with, actually. I run a workshop at Venice Biennale College Cinema for the immersive group, and I'm on the board of New Images. And, there are those who are strongly resistant to new forms of media, and I'm not one of those. I was, though. I should be completely honest. I was. I would not even put on one of those headsets.
What was the experiment and how it changed you?
Yes, that's true. I was brought kicking and screaming to immersive media. I didn't want to put on one of those headsets. I really was resistant to that. I'm a cinema purist. Well, I was, because actually once I put it on and this friend of mine curated a series of experiences for me to have. That's the way you describe it. It's not films to watch, it's experiences to have. These were incredibly powerful. And that's because it's not just a matter of putting on and watching. There are certain experiences that are augmented reality, some are mixed reality, which mean that when you put the headset on, there's also a second camera that mixes what is being shown to you with the environment in which you're actually in. There are others that enable your hands to become actors in what you're seeing, and so you have agency. And this means that the level of empathy for the characters within the experience is heightened. And so the level of emotional impact on you as a user is greater. So for me, there's enormous potential there, and that potential couldn't be used badly,
Right.
for the good.
Right.
And so I'm cautiously moving forward and being an advocate for making decisions ethically and responsibly in that space, and working with creators to say, can this be done? How can this power be harnessed and used for the good? Yeah.
That's great. And if we talk about innovation, AI has changed a lot of things, even now. And I'm sure in next 2 years, it is going to completely change a lot of things. How do you see its impact? Do you think, are you positive, hopeful for the impact that AI is going to bring? Is it going to make the filmmakers' life easy, or will it add a lot of troubles to their lives, especially with the AI actors? I'm not happy with them.
Yeah, look, I think I just saw something this morning actually where an author was talking about his texts having been scraped, and I know mine have. My books have been scraped by AI, and he described it as theft. Nothing, and he said, unfortunately, certain of the actors in this space do not respond to ethics, but they do
Yeah.
respond to the law, and the law has not caught up with it. And so I think I think there's, I have my
It
own concerns about it. And also I feel, concerned that I've also been reading statistics about how the majority of use of AI and how much that's linked to filling a space that is essentially a gap in human interaction. So I think there are really big issues, and they need to be put on the table and discussed. I suppose that's what you're trying to say here. There's so many
Yeah.
unknowns, so nobody feels quite authorized to speak, including me. I feel like, that I'm not a technologist. I just am a person.
I think as the and the more people start using it, we as an audience, you as a bridging. So people and the filmmakers who are working, they will know its impact, which are good, and of course the negative impacts. It will bring some negative impacts. We all should be ready. And I think the important is the sooner we discuss about the laws, implementation, human interaction and everything, the sooner we will be able to curb its negative effects. I think this is the safest and best answers for it. Julia, I hope you are doing very interesting projects, and in future also you will be releasing some interesting papers, because I know you love this writing, and PhD says it all. And could you please tell us top 1 to 2 projects that you're very passionate about and you just look forward to, even if they are in 2 to 3 years, that make you very excited?
Well, I'm hoping there's a project that a team that I met at Venice in August, and in fact, it's 2 Jewish women who
Yeah.
are looking at intergenerational trauma, and it's a beautiful, beautiful project, a very sensitive project, one that I think is a peace building project. And I hope we'll get the funding for that. I'm in the immersive space. I'm currently part of a call for papers for an edition of a Sage publication called Convergence, which will have a special issue dedicated to social impact. So that's something that I'm looking forward to, because that's new to be talking about that. And I'm on the board of New Images, which is terrific. And that's New Images is entering a new chapter. It's been now set up as a private foundation, and they're very committed to social impact. The managing director, Michelle Ziegler, is very committed to ensuring the public good. And then one really exciting thing is that I'm leading France's first university course in impact producing. Now, until now, I've run courses in impact producing within the university, but now it's become part of their curriculum for certain master's and bachelor's students. So I'm very, delighted about that.
Julia, I'm very proud that the efforts you have done, the hard work, the sacrifice, and I'm sure you must have missed a lot of parties and a lot of nights where you kept working all night and you missed on a lot of things. But this is rewarding you so well that now what you are doing is part of the curriculum of a university. And this is such a achievement. Many, many congratulations. And I'm super, super proud of it. And I think I should say I loved every bit of your conversation. And thank you for sharing all the personal things also, and the professional and the hope also for the new filmmaking, the challenges. If you would like, and in fact, I would like to connect with you again in December or in January so that we can talk more, because I just love this conversation. And before we sign out, feel free to share your feedback or anything you would like to say as your message.
With pleasure to be here today. But actually, I realized when you were talking about how hard I worked, I forgot to say that I do prioritize time out. So I will be, when I go to Cannes or to Venice I'm going tomorrow to Vienna for the International Press Institute Congress. I'm very present. But when I take time out to myself, and it's very important, I walk in nature, I listen to music, I do yoga, I read, I drink tea with my husband. Solitude is very important to me too, and quietness. So I would say to other women, do make that time for yourself, because without it, you're running on empty.
This is the message that we all need to hear in this busy world, full of pressure, disappointment, despite having everything and still wanting more. But this sums up. And thank you so much for sharing. And viewers, thank you so much for joining us. I'll be back very soon with another exceptional female and her story. Thank you. Goodbye.